All rise. Chairman of the Town Council, Richard Kehoe, everybody. I know. That's a good point.
Right. All right, thank you. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us today for this engaging session. So the topic of today is safer streets, stronger communities, the roundabout solution. So this topic has gained a lot of traction over the last few decades as the implementation of roundabouts has accelerated throughout various communities and throughout the state. So today we have the opportunity to hear from Connecticut DOT, as well as several members from the town of East Hartford, about various topics related to roundabouts. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce the panel. Oh, thank you. All right. So my name is Jason Ouimet. I am a senior project manager with the Beta Group. Beta provides engineering design services for several municipalities throughout the state, including the town of East Hartford. Joining us today is Scott Bushy. He is a principal engineer and chairman of the Roundabout Committee at Connecticut DOT with over 2 decades of experience planning and designing roundabouts throughout the state. As I mentioned earlier, we are also joined by Honorable Mayor Connor Martin, along with Alex Trujillo, Director of Public Works, as well as Mac Hawkins, Chief of Police, and Doug Wilson, Town Engineer. So right now, I'd like to hand over the presentation to Scott Bushy to discuss the operation safety and public benefits that roundabouts provide throughout the state.
Good evening, everyone. I've been involved with roundabouts in Connecticut for about 20 years now. We've got 10 built now on state roadways, designed through Connecticut DOT, and have had a huge success. So I'm going to share that with you. One of the first early ones we worked on was conversion of an old traffic circle to a modern roundabout. What you see there is not a modern roundabout. That's an outdated traffic circle. The diameter is pretty large, and you can see by those red lines I drew over the picture. Very, very straight geometry. It allows for very high speeds, which is a safety concern. We had crashes there and injuries, and we knew that we could make that safer by employing modern roundabout features. So now we have that curvilinear design coming in that causes people to slow down, significantly improving safety by just that quick retrofit. We design roundabouts for tractor trailers. What's shown there in that picture is called a WB62. That's also referred to as an interstate tractor trailer. It's got a 53-foot box. The 62 refers to the wheelbase, but from the front axle to the center of the rear axle. Our roundabouts on state roadways are designed for this vehicle. Here's a truck, that same vehicle coming through that roundabout. You can see the rear wheels are up on that kind of pink surface in the middle, that brick colored surface. That's called the truck apron. And then you can see the cab of the truck just following along the edge line going through there. And that's how trucks go through roundabouts, properly designed. We have some nice gateway signing there for Town of Killingworth, some nice plantings, kind of really nice, makes that community look nice. We use textured surfaces and grass paver blocks to kind of minimize the amount of concrete. That worked out really well. Also aesthetic. And great success in terms of safety, reducing crashes by 57% and injuries by 67% with those improvements. And when I see crash reduction, especially injury reduction, that's success, right? Somebody didn't get hurt, somebody go to the hospital, somebody's able to continue on with their life that day, and that's somebody's family member. So that's important. Another location we have, this one was in West Haven, Connecticut. Another one we looked at. This had side street stop control, meaning a stop sign on the side street, and a couple of problems with this location. If you look at the crosswalk and the length of it, because of the opening of that intersection, nobody wants a pedestrian in a crosswalk that long being exposed to traffic. Imagine somebody pushing a baby carriage across there, right? We could do better for safety. It had problems with left turning vehicles in and out of the side street. People were having a hard time finding a gap. We had a motorcycle fatality here. And the initial request was to put in a traffic signal. And we knew with the radius of that roadway, the geometry, the higher speeds, that the signal wasn't really the safest solution. We built a modern roundabout and had great results with it. We reduced speed significantly. We shortened the pedestrian crossings, making it safer. They're actually two-stage crossings. We've got that nice gateway treatment with the flagpole and plantings. That really became kind of an anchor for those businesses on the corner as well. Over the last decade, after we built that, I watched several of those businesses grow and expand. They have outdoor dining, new businesses came in after. The opposite side had kind of a dilapidated gas station repair garage that was bought out by a convenience store and all rebuilt, remodeled, looked beautiful. So that worked out very well. Reduction in crashes by 60% and injuries by 67%. Certainly a success there in terms of safety. Roundabouts are safe because they're lower speed. And what we learned from studying crash data, if a pedestrian or a cyclist gets hit and the speeds are around 20 miles an hour, 9 out of 10 survive. If a pedestrian or cyclist get hit and the speeds are around 40 miles an hour or higher, only 1 out of 10 survive. So think about our traffic signalized intersections. When it's a green light and we're going through that on the green light, what kind of speeds do we have? So if we can employ more roundabouts and get the speeds down 20, 25 miles an hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians survive. They're involved in a crash. Bicycles do very well in roundabouts. If we kind of look at that teal line going through in the middle, that's the woman up on the top right corner. She's an avid cyclist, very experienced. She's riding through the circular roadway with traffic at speeds 15 to 20 miles an hour. She can do that, keeps right up with traffic. That's the safest place for a cyclist to be in the roundabout, being seen right with traffic. The gentleman in the middle of the picture, he's kind of pushing his bike on the crosswalk. Maybe he's a little less experienced, a little confident. He's going to exit the roadway at the crosswalk, go up on the sidewalk, become a pedestrian. Then at the crosswalk, he's going to look to his left. If it's clear, he's got a gap. He's going to cross to the center island, which is an area of refuge. He's going to look to his right. If it's clear, he's going to cross the rest of the way. It's a two-stage crossing. When he gets across the street, he can either exit back onto the bike lane or shoulder, or continue on the sidewalk as a pedestrian. Another reason roundabouts are safer for pedestrians is driver behavior and action items when they enter the roundabout and position of the crosswalk. So if you look at that car I have on the kind of the bottom of the picture is black, it's got the red lines drawn on it. That's the driver that's making decisions. He's at the roundabout and he's thinking, I want to enter the circular roadway. I'm looking to my left. I'm looking in front of me. Is there a safe gap to go? All these decisions are being processed. Meanwhile, the pedestrian's crossing behind the vehicle, out of the space of the driver making the decisions, which is a big difference between roundabouts and traffic signals. If you're at a traffic signal and there's a crosswalk, that crosswalk's in front of the vehicle and in front of the driver whose eye is looking up at the light to see if it's going to turn green and they can go. And maybe that driver's also looking to their left to process vehicles coming at them and are they going to stop? And maybe a pedestrian steps off the crosswalk on the right side of that vehicle as the light turns green. All these decision-making processes going on and the crosswalk's in front of the vehicle. Roundabouts, it's at the rear of the vehicle, significantly safer in addition to the lower speeds. I mentioned it's a two-stage crossing. You go out to the center island, that's your refuge area. You can take a break, stop. You look to your right. If it's safe, whenever you get the gap, you go. You don't have to cross the whole roadway at one time. Roundabouts have less conflict points because we've eliminated the left turns. All turns at roundabouts are right turn entry, right turn exit. With that, you don't have the crossing maneuvers. This eliminates the T-bone type crashes, the severe side swipe crashes that would occur. So we get a 75% reduction in conflict points and a 40 to 50% reduction in speeds at most roundabout locations. Another win for safety. Another location not too far from us, Ellington, Connecticut, the old Five Corners. This was stop controlled. Significant traffic congestion in the PM peak hour. I took that picture back in probably 2007 or 8. It was a 4-minute delay to get through that intersection. I stood there with my watch and I watched the car at the top of that hill till they all the way got through the intersection. It was 4 minutes. horrible capacity. We built a modern roundabout, nice gateway treatment, municipal signing. The congestion cleared up, went away. Reduced injuries by 70%, but this one really made traffic operations much more efficient. At a roundabout, you pull up to the yield sign, look to your left. If it's clear, you go. Very simple. Multiple legs can enter the roundabout at one time. This is one of our biggest success stories, Salem, Connecticut. Signalized intersection, existing condition. Similar to many intersections we have in Connecticut, this intersection over time, because of capacity upgrades, we've added left turn lanes, right turn lanes, multiple lanes on all legs of the intersection, and it's still very congested, very high speeds on the green light. You can imagine people probably go through here over 50 miles an hour, certainly, right? And here's the congestion, PM peak hour, people kind of fighting their way through that intersection. Built a modern roundabout, slow, safe, very easy. And nobody's waiting at the red light. Multiple legs are entering that circular roadway at the same time, which makes capacity of roundabouts significantly better. Here's a large vehicle coming through. This is a tractor trailer towing a large construction equipment. And it's showing you that roundabouts do handle large vehicles very well. That large trailer is going up on the truck apron. That's what it's designed to do. He's going to make a U-turn. And that roundabout handles that large vehicle very well. That could easily be a fire truck, tractor trailer, anything. That's actually a larger vehicle than one I showed earlier. Requires a state permit on that vehicle. So 55% reduction in crashes, but 88% reduction in injuries. That's big. That intersection had over 22 crashes a year as a traffic signal. We get it down to 10 by putting in that roundabout. It's a lot of lives saved. People didn't get hurt. Another traffic circle we upgraded with modern roundabout features. Look at the straight geometry. Imagine there's high speeds. Employ these modern roundabout features. You can't go fast through that intersection. Look at this geometry. You can't physically drive it very fast. The geometry controls the speed, not the traffic light. Reduced injuries here significantly. Reduced crashes. Monroe, Connecticut, it said a stop sign on the side street. It's two state routes, 110 and 111. Significant traffic congestion at the stop sign, people having a hard time making a left. Very high speed crashes here with severe injuries because of the speed and people pulling out of the side street stop control condition. Built a modern roundabout with a nice gateway treatment, nice sidewalks. This provided great access up to the community center, the library, and town hall from the adjacent community. So enhanced pedestrian connectivity significantly, kind of created a nice anchor, made the area look good. Beautiful uplighting in the center, which helps with nighttime safety. The uplighting is not just decoration. It makes people see the roundabout at nighttime from a distance. And here's a deflection coming in. Nice speed control. That's why people go slow through roundabouts. Can't drive fast through that. The deflection. And here's the engineering behind it. We measure those radiuses, and that tells us as design engineers how fast a vehicle could reasonably drive those curves. So this one shows the entry at 24 miles an hour, the circulating roadway at 17 miles an hour. That's slow, right? That's in the age, the speed at where 9 out of 10 pedestrians survive. So that's our goal. There's a little video. This is sped up just so we can get through the video quicker, but there's a school bus. Here's a tractor trailer coming through. This is your interstate trailer, WB62. Rear wheels are up on the truck apron. It's another school bus. On the school buses, the wheels don't go up on the truck apron. Only freight goes up on the truck apron, not passengers. But works very smooth, very simple. Reduced injuries by 60%. So that's a huge win for us. Looks beautiful. Granby, Connecticut, Route 202. This is a real interesting story and close to my heart. We had someone on the Volunteer Ambulance Association that wrote us at DOT and said, I'm responding to a lot of people getting hurt at this location and taking to hospital. Can you please put in a traffic signal here? That was an emergency responder that wrote that letter to us. This location had stop signs on the side street. We knew with the high speeds and that straight roadway that the traffic signal on the green ball was still going to result in high speeds. We knew the roundabout was the right solution, work with the community and the town. We got this roundabout. Here's a school bus going through that. Very simple, very safe. Speeds are low for everyone. We've got nice pedestrian accommodations, plantings, gateway treatment. Reduced injuries by 78% at that location, and we've reduced speeds from 50 miles an hour down to about 25, making that safer for that community. Guilford, Connecticut, this very awkward configuration, put that into a roundabout, cleaned it up. Works very smooth, very simple, lower speeds, safe for all users. Nice plantings in the middle. Reduced injuries by 43% at that location. Every one of these roundabouts has been a success in terms of safety. And this one very close to us, this is Glastonbury on Heaver Avenue. A lot of traffic moving through, but look, everybody's going concurrently. All the legs are entering the circular roadway at the same time. If that was a traffic signal, you'd have traffic stopped on one leg. Nobody's moving, waiting for the light. Nobody's waiting here. It's very efficient. It's better for the environment. We're saving fuel and emissions. An example of a different type of roundabout, this is called a mini roundabout. The ones I showed you previously, those are single lane roundabouts. This mini roundabout is completely mountable in the center. That means large vehicles drive completely over the center. It's raised a little bit. Most cars will stay off of it. It helps to control speeds. They're just used in low context areas, low speed context areas. Very safe. Thank you. And again, we've had about a 71% reduction in crashes with all of those locations. Very successful program.
All right, well, thank you, Scott. So as you can see, Connecticut DOT has done an excellent job with planning, designing, and constructing these roundabouts throughout the state. So they deliver the public safety benefits that Scott had just discussed. So now municipalities are now seeking to build upon these successes as the towns continue to experience significant injuries and fatalities at traditional intersections. So what I want to show you right now is just an example of an incident in East Hartford at the signalized T intersection of Main Street and Connecticut Boulevard. So this photo that I have up on the screen is from 2019, where a vehicle crashed into a brick wall at this intersection. This resulted in injuring 2 people. And over the last 5 years, this wall has been struck approximately 6 to 7 times, with most recently in January of this year, it was struck again. And these are the photos from that incident from January, not too long ago. So improving safety is the primary goal for implementing roundabouts, and it's an initiative being prioritized by the town of East Hartford. So today we have several members of the town joining us today to share their concerns and objectives regarding the implementation of roundabouts throughout your community. So first, I'd like to start off with a question to the mayor. So Mayor, what is your vision and goals for implementing roundabouts throughout the town of East Hartford with regards to economic development and overall safety?
No, thank you, Jason. And you know, once again, to reiterate what I had kind of opened up with is the 2 main goals are to improve overall pedestrian safety in East Hartford and combat bad driver behavior. And so how do we plan to do that? We plan to force driver behavior to change. And by doing so through a roundabout, in addition to leveraging additional technology that would assist our police department in their enforcement action of traffic laws, such as red light cameras, speed cameras, stop sign cameras, all things that hope to combat bad driving behavior. And so just like you had saw through Scott's presentation, how does a roundabout improve safety? And so it does so by not only forcing you to slow down, keeping people in their lane, and forcing people to abide by the traffic laws. What I think it does more than anything, and this dovetails in the conversation on, well, when do people cross the road? You know, when do we yield to people? When do we enter a roundabout? It requires a high level of paying attention from us as drivers. And it's not like a signalized intersection or a 4-way stop sign where, you know, you can kind of look at your phone, look at your radio, look off to the distance, you know, while you wait for the light to turn green or while you wait for the next car to go. You need to pay attention. We all need to pay attention the entire time that you're operating or moving through a roundabout. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the more drivers are paying attention, the safer it is for the rest of us on the roadways. And so we had to start looking at alternatives because I had always said this, that it was with over 1,000 intersections, I think we have over 1,000 stop signs, as the chief always reminds me, it's not feasible for me to put a police officer at every single intersection. And what we do is we absolutely will respond to an intersection that's experiencing traffic problems. I've been on ride-alongs myself with the police to see the effort that they make to combat this. But with 8 officers on shift at any time, it is almost impossible for us to combat all the bad driving behavior out there. And so we have to take a different alternative, a different approach to start forcing driver behavior to change. And, at the end of the day, with the other stuff that happens in this town, I really want my police out combating serious crime. And there's a number of serious crimes that are addressed or combated that you will never see about. It never makes the news, and it's a testament to the good job that the police department do. But at the end of the day, what I know more than anything is that although traffic violations may result in a serious incident or a serious crime, they're more so nuisance crimes. But I think we acknowledge that the nuisance crimes are the ones that affect our quality of life every single day. And I look at my chief of staff here, Kate, and she knows just as well as I do, you don't call us to say, hey, when are you going to develop Silver Lane? Hey, when's the riverfront going to get developed? You say, hey, people keep running the stop sign that's in front of my house. Hey, I almost got hit because someone ran over the double yellow lines or someone ran through the signalized intersection. These are the things that you see every single day. And after you continuously see them, you start to wonder, what's the town of East Hartford doing about this, right? Where are the police? What's the mayor doing about the traffic violations that are happening? And so we know that these nuisance crimes, this bad driving behavior is affecting your quality of life more than anything else. And we have to do something to address this quality of life issues. And we think Roundabout is a surefire way to do it. And so kind of going into additionally, what is my vision, right? And I also think Roundabouts help support economic development significantly. And you guys know this photo, you know this wall very well. Luckily, they missed the wall this time, but they got the gate next to the wall. And you know this intersection being at Connecticut Boulevard. You also know that I have been working to revitalize our Main Street. But you all know how fast Main Street moves, whether it's an 18-wheeler doing 60 miles per hour or just that guy who doesn't care and he's doing 80, down Main Street. And as we know, our Main Street, which is owned by DOT, and we have a really wonderful working relationship with them to look at how we can reconfigure the traffic, it's very vehicular oriented right now. It's not pedestrian friendly. And so as we work to revitalize everything on the outside of the road, the Bissell Street vision, the cultural events we have at the town green, I need to make it safe for you to be able to cross one point of the road to the other. And I can't do that unless we slow down traffic and we force driver behavior to improve so that you can enjoy the great things that we're hoping to bring to Main Street. So that's just an example of how roundabouts significantly help not only improve driver behavior, but help make economic development come to fruition and make it enjoyable and make it pedestrian friendly. So these are really the reasons for why we're doing this in East Hartford. It's those two main reasons. It's trying to make East Hartford more pedestrian safe, and then trying to curb bad driver behavior by forcing it to change through roundabouts. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So the next question I'd like to ask to Alex Trujillo. As Director of Public Works, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced with speed control in the community?
So the challenges that I have is that the communities, sometimes when they reach out with issues, they already have the answer. And the answer that they come up with is, we need speed bumps. And speed bumps really are not the answer. Speed bumps bring a layer of issues along, including noise, slow response for police and fire, plowing issues for myself, some drainage along the curb lines. And unfortunately, that on a stretch of road where you have a resident that complains about a speed bump, and that's what they want, sometimes that's not the location where the speed bump would go in, even if it was warranted. So now another neighbor down the street inherits the noise of the car deaccelerating, hopping the speed bump, and then accelerating. So there's a lot of issues with speed bumps, and speed bumps are not really the answer. We have to look at it from a global standpoint, right? Identify, is there a problem? And we start by doing traffic counts. See if there actually is a speed issue. Sometimes it's only one individual that speeds up the street. Sometimes it's a visual audio difference. Like when we're plowing snow, we get complaints that my plow trucks are speeding and they're really only doing 10, 15 miles an hour. But it's that noise and that visual that makes you think that there's a speed issue. So we have to study it and come up with the right solution. And in the long run, when I took this job, the Mayor Walsh, he gave me 3 streets to look at, and he thought that, speed bumps was the answer, and I had to de-escalate him from that. And this, one of the roundabouts that we're talking about is in the area that he had received a complaint about. So we studied it, and that's where we're at.
Great, thank you, Axe. Next question is for Mac Hawkins. So as chief of police, what is your experience with speeding and crashes at intersections, as well as the feedback that you've received from residents?
So first, I'll start with testing. My residents. The information I get back from my residents, some of you here in the crowd, is very important. It's invaluable. Why? Because we need to know what's going on and where it's occurring at. So as a police chief, addressing speeding, accidents, just overall motor vehicle enforcement is very important to me. If I go back to just after COVID, we responded to, in 2021, 7 fatal motor vehicle accidents with 8 fatalities. So at which point in time, the police department said, we have to do something about this. We instituted what we call the Safe Streets Initiative. So from from April to August of every year, we do a heavy campaign and education on speed enforcement for the town. With that being said, roundabouts are important to me because, like Scott already mentioned, accidents, even at low speeds, without roundabouts at major intersections, you still get severe accidents at low speeds. What is a roundabout going to do? It's going to prevent those T-bone crashes, those head-on crashes. It's going to reduce the footprint of the police department responding to accidents. It's going to help keep my community safe. Roundabouts, as we know, they improve traffic flow. They reduce the severity of accidents, as I already spoke, compared to traditional intersections, your traditional 3-way or 4-way intersections, which obviously it's beneficial, as been mentioned by a couple members on the panel, for emergency response, for public works, for Connecticut Transit alone. So the 5 points that I would like to make and talk to you about are the following. Reduce crash severity. Roundabouts, in my opinion, are designed to reduce the likelihood of severe collisions, such as right angle, left turn, head-on crashes, T-bone crashes, which are common at all your traditional intersections. Number 2, to improve the traffic flow, as you saw in the video here. With roundabouts, that traffic flows nice and easy at the intersection. It slows people down. 3, enhance safety for all road users, not just the people that are in the cars, but your pedestrians and your bicyclists. Reduce maintenance costs. That's going to be less maintenance for your traditional intersections when it comes to traffic signals. What do we have at all intersections? Traffic signals. We're constantly repairing them. It could be from the wind. It could be from a light out. Here, with roundabouts, you're not going to have that issue. Last but not least, and the director here from Public Works, Alex, touched on it, traffic calming measures. That's key. We want to be able to calm traffic. We're doing other things in East Hartford. Like I spoke, with the campaigns, looking at, as the mayor mentioned, red light, speed light cameras. We need some additional items that are going to be able to help us. And, I think roundabouts are it. If we look around other areas, just right next door, Hebron Avenue in Glastonbury, they put a couple of them there and they work. It's going to be tough initially for individuals to get used to it. But once you get used to it, it's easy. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Hey, thank you, Mac. Hey, this question is for Doug Wilson. So Doug, we've been assisting you with the design of a few roundabouts throughout East Hartford. Can you elaborate on the status of each one of those, as well as future potential opportunities for those roundabouts?
Absolutely. Thank you. Listen, as everybody's heard, we have a collective, collaborative effort on improving traffic safety throughout the town, and we think that we really have something that we can focus on with roundabouts here. The roundabouts, we're hoping will give us these really functional, fundable, that's important, we can get some of these things built, safer and maintainable solutions. So where are we looking at them specifically in East Hartford? Well, here's the 8 locations that are being studied. When I say we, it's actually a bit of a collective. If you see the 4 cyan dots, those are on Main Street. That's Pitkin Street, Connecticut Boulevard, Governor Street, and Burnside Avenue. That is part of a larger study, which is a early project from the Greater Hartford Mobility Study. DOT has hired a consultant. If you've seen any surveyors out on Main Street in the past few days, they're surveying for that project. And there's going to be studies on the feasibility of now you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's 3 roundabouts. The Pitkin Street would be just off to the right on the other side of I-84. They're going to study the feasibility of those and how they would be able to operate. We know there's a large volume of traffic going through on Main Street. We know it's high speed. Can it be made to work with roundabouts in a way that'll be functional? And can we get the funding through Greater Hartford Mobility? Be great to see that happen. It'd be part of the mayor's vision for improvement to Main Street. The 2 green dots are self-funded town projects. The first one on the lower part, south of it, is Forbes, Chester, and Roberts. That's a roundabout. We're going to talk about that in some more detail because that, as Director Trujillo had said, is a response to a complaint that was leading toward a speed bump, but really got redirected in a better direction. The other one at the very northeast corner of town, that it seems kind of remote, and it is, but it's an important location because that's where Burnham Street and Sherwood hit. That is your shortcut for probably the northern half of East Hartford to come down Burnham Street and take Burnham into Manchester and hit the Buckland Hills, all the shopping, all the restaurants, all the services that are there. It has become a real shortcut and the speeds are way up in that section. We're looking for a way, as we rehabilitate the roadway, that we can also calm traffic. The last 2 are much more conceptual. They're kind of on our hit list. One of them is Burnside at Larrabee. I'll show you that. It's a very rough concept at this point. It has to do with the middle school. It has to do with traffic coming up and over the hill on Route 44. And then the last one is Goodwin at Ellington, which is really, really conceptual, as in we just think it might be a good idea at that location, and I'll share why that is. So let's focus on that Forbes, Chester, and Roberts roundabout. And here's one way that we look at traffic incidents. This is a crash heat map. So anything that's darkest purple in here shows the most crashes. And what you could say is we're going to study the entire community. We're going to put the roundabouts at the positions of the highest incidents of crashes. And as it turns out, we sort of did that. Well, maybe not in the case of the one up in the northeast corner. Like I said, that's a pretty quiet area other than the shortcut traffic that comes through from the northern end of town. But all of the other stars in this case are lining up on some part of the heat map. This is from our plan of conservation development. And the important thing about this is that it specifically excludes highway crashes. You want to make sure that you're looking at surface roads here, either state roads or town roads. That's what this map does very well. And you can see where the issues are. So the blue stars, you've got the DOT focusing on Main Street and Main at Pitkin. And then we're going to focus on the lower green star that is at that Forbes, Chester, and roundabout, or Forbes, Chester, and Roberts. Now, here's what happened. We had a complaint about speed, serious complaint about speed, persistent, insistent complaint about speed at that location. It's about halfway through from Forbes Street, which is the blue line off to the left, to Great Hill, which is the T intersection on to the right. It is a very straight, flat, wide section of road, and speeds can get quite high. And you would think if you go to a standard default position that you would want to put a speed hump in that area. But what we decided to do is actually take a look at some of the numbers and see what we were really getting and do a bit of study. So the police department has the your speed signs, and they can capture some information for us, and they did do that. And there's a couple of things that are happening here. One is that the average daily traffic is pretty low on these. It's just not that high. There's 1,500 vehicles a day, something like that. But the speeds, generally, the average and that 85th percentile speed, which is, you take away the top highest 15% of speeds, those are typically falling in the 30, 35 mile an hour range. But then you look at those max speeds, 64, a 71, a 90, and a 75. Wow, okay. So where's the speed problem? Where it doesn't seem to be in the range of most drivers, everybody below that 85th percentile. Those max speeds are pretty bad though. And you'll see in the picture that we're at 25 miles an hour on this section. Now, you could argue that it's straight enough and clear enough and houses are back far enough at 35. But instead, what we decided to do is that we knew that a speed hump was not going to work at this location because of all the reasons that Alex had alliterated before. I won't revisit those. But what we did is we went back to the intersection of Roberts, Forbes, and Chester. So now we're on the east side of that. These pins represent the serious and property damage crashes that have occurred at a traffic signalized intersection here. And you said, gee, that's not very good. And Scott had a great argument on the number of crashes and how you're talking about 40, 50 crashes, how those could be reduced down by 85% in terms of serious injury. I think that'd be great. Now, what I also think is happening is that Robert Street is basically built like a highway. When you've been down it, and I know you've all been down it, it is a section of highway. It's super elevated. It's 4 lanes. It's very wide, very clear, very few driveways. And as a result, it's not a place you want to stop your car. And we had someone who stopped their car about 500 feet to the west of this location, and they were run down and killed. We need to reduce speeds. And wait, if you take that speed and you bring it through a signalized intersection, which means that when the green ball is on you, or you think you can hit the green ball, then you can speed through that. You're already at 50 or 60 miles an hour, and you can basically jump it because look at the grades that happen right at this light. You can't see from one side of the signal to the other whether or not there's a vehicle on the other side. So if somebody's going to turn left and they're pushing the end of their light, and you're going to speed through and you can see how you're going to catch the light coming the other direction, the two of you might meet and in a serious way. And then you're going to fall back to the east and you're going to be going down that stretch that heads to Great Hill, which is a 3-way stop. And you're going to be at very high speeds with no reason to do that whatsoever. So based on these decisions, we wanted to look at a roundabout to make this better. And we think we have a hit here in terms of a single lane roundabout that will remove the traffic signal at this location and cause those nice angular movements, reduce those conflict points, as Scott mentioned, and get everybody moving through here with less delay in a safer way and eliminate the opportunity for folks to come either east or west on Roberts and Chester at high speeds. And really, if we have some crashes, always going to have some crashes. People make mistakes, but they're going to be low. They're going to be no injury or low injury, and they're going to be just property damage. Two people sort of competing for the same space, not two people trying to kill each other by actually hitting each other. So what we're expecting to see, and you kind of saw something similar that Scott posted, we're expecting to see that 80% and 78% reduction in serious injuries and fatalities. We luckily, knock on wood, we have not had fatality at this location. We don't want that. We don't want to have that to prove that a roundabout is necessary. We sought funding through a program called LOTSIP. LOTSIP is 100% state-funded construction. The town's responsible for design. That's sort of our share of the project. We had some good press from the Gazette here. The plan made it into the paper. We've now gone through about as far as we can with the funding application, and we are just waiting for a letter that's called a commitment to fund. And at that point, we will enter active design on this with the hope that within a year or so, we can get into construction. The good thing about this particular location is that it doesn't have any right-of-way needs, so it speeds that up considerably. So just to show you what the concept is for Burnham Street, this is what we've got right now. It's an offset of Burnham Street. So you're taking the traffic, bringing it down into the Sherwood Drive area. You're angling that traffic. It's got to use the circle. This is not a full working roundabout. You don't see in the middle a raised island with the planters, with the uplighting and that sort of thing. We don't have that kind of space here because we needed to make space for pedestrians to move around on these legs. We don't only have sidewalks around here, but as Scott said, the entire lane in a single lane roundabout is taken up by the vehicle. So you shouldn't be walking on that pavement. So even though this is, let's call this very remote for East Hartford, we need to have the sidewalks there to keep people off of that pavement. Bicyclists, if they're walking, they want to walk it, they can walk the sidewalk, as Scott pointed out, or they bike around it if they're feeling confident in doing so. But this will eliminate the high-speed movement on Burnham Street, which will be higher after we repave. Right now, the road is in very bad shape. Everyone here is going to nod their heads. It's in very bad shape. People are still speeding now with the road being in very bad shape. We go and repave it. We fix the cross section. We clean up the drainage. We take water off of it so you don't have ice in the wintertime. It's going to get even faster. We can't allow that even faster traffic in there. We will have death and serious injury. We need to do something. We have the space here. We know that this is a solution that will help with that. I got like 4 slides. Yeah.
We can go back to any slide that you might have questions. Sir. Get to it. Let me just have him get through the rest of the board.
Okay, so I mentioned Larrabee at Burnside, and the numbers in the circles here represent the number of crashes that have occurred at this location. But even more importantly, we've got the middle school right here. And there's a lot of school drop-off and pickup that happens on the state road. And the police chief has assigned an officer. I think he's still coming out there for the pickup drop-offs. And he reports that people are speeding excessively through the middle of traffic parked on both sides. And with the crossing of children at sort of, let's call it random locations. I'm just going to get the mom and dad's car. People are jumping out of their cars and going across. It's a big safety issue. This might make a good position for a roundabout. That triangle of green in there is actually owned by the town. So we have a little bit of land, plus there's the middle school there. And you've got, you know, if you count the school driveway, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different legs of this. And this is something now real rough. And I also didn't have the good sense to put in the sidewalk for each leg to jump around it. So it would need to shift and actually change some, but somebody couldn't speed through this. If you have kids who are being dropped off on either side of this and they're going across, the speeds are going to be way down. You're not going to have people speeding through a school zone, which is just kind of mind blowing. And they're going to be able to have less delay on normal situations. It's not a place for you to add a traffic signal, but it could be a really good place for a roundabout. Again, needing quite a bit more study. The last position was this one here on Goodwin Street and Route 5, Ellington Road. Again, a very high-speed road that comes down into East Hartford, 4 lanes divided. You got wide open views. You've got people doing 60, 70 miles an hour. And that star right there is where somebody died. And they died because they were trying to come out of that gas station and take a left. They saw they were clear of the car in the right lane. They were not clear of the car in the left lane. They got T-boned and they died. So now I don't want to have more death, but the Route 5 is basically a machine of moving vehicles very fast, and we have slow-moving vehicles entering and exiting onto it, and people see that yellow light and they'll speed up, and they think it might turn red and they'll speed up. This is what can happen. This is what can happen. We don't want to see this happen again. So we've learned some lessons in terms of taking a look at what's happening in the area and going back to some data and seeking what the actual results are of the speed studies. We're checking traffic, the speed classification. We're going to look at, it's more than a singular issue of they're speeding at a point. Because as you've seen on Chester, we moved off that point to an adjacent location that really makes a lot more sense, and then try to figure out how we can shape that driver behavior so that something that's just statically built in the environment, not even electrically controlled and not overhead needing maintenance of a traffic signal, can actually help make things safer. And just as one last thought, which I think skipped over before, we may expand our efforts. Let's say that at the Forbes Chester roundabout, we still have some non-compliance with the stop signs at the T intersection at Great Hill. There are other solutions, including, this is one of my favorite here, which would be a raised intersection, which is something you really don't want to speed through. It's like a tabletop you drive onto to get into the intersection. There are proven safety methods to try to control some behaviors at the stop there, independent of what's happening here. And if you've got the roundabout and you've got a speed table, you're not going to see 60, 70 miles an hour of speeding in between. And that is where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, members of the panel. At this time, we'd be happy to open it up to questions. So, sir, if you want to come up here and ask your question, please use the mic just so that the folks online can hear you. And for our folks online, if once again, if you can just write your question into the chat, Marissa will read it off for us so that we can get your question answered as well. So, all right.
My name is George Parsons. I live on Burnham Street. I've lived there for a long time, drive it daily. And I have seen just about everything there. And my concern with the design, that eastbound traffic will not use the roundabout. If there's any way possible, they'll continue straight. And then those who are heading westbound, coming over the overpass for 291, don't necessarily have good visibility because of the contour of the road. And there's a good chance that you could have a head-on accident. Another question I have is, are all these roundabouts single lane? Because Burnside Avenue, Main Street, you're going to have 6 lanes coming in to use that roundabout. Has that been taken into consideration? Somewhere along the line, you're going to have to reduce those 2 lanes to 1. And that's going to add to the traffic possibly backing up. I don't know if you have experience with that or if it's, something that has been considered. But I think I think the one at Chester and Forbes, I would say that would be a good solution for that area. The others, I have reservations. Thank you.
Thank you.
So a couple of things about this design. Where you see the white islands that split the traffic on the 2 lanes, those are raised islands. So you're actually bending the traffic. Without going over a raised island, you're not going to be able to just drive straight. These aren't painted markings. It's not flat. It's not flush. We'll have curbing that's going to come down from on the north side where that piece of sidewalk is that's up against the town line that pushes down. There'll be curbing there that you will not want to mount. It should be granite curb that nobody wants to touch with their tires. It'll tear your tires apart when you go to drive on it. Try it in Manchester. They have granite curb everywhere. It's terrible. You don't want to touch it. So that will force those vehicles out of any sort of a straight alignment. And that fastest path is actually one of the most critical elements. Scott had that in a couple of his slides. And it's one of the details that we're going to look at the most of whether or not somebody can sort of bypass, at least on the westbound, that dip down. On the eastbound, there's no doing that unless you're going to go the wrong way. But that triangular island that's there just past the crosswalk on the west side of this is not mountable. You can't go over it without probably wrecking a low car that got their front end down low. I don't even know how you'd get over it. So you're going to turn, you're going to slow down, and then you're going to go around. It's a little small so that if, let's say, a tractor trailer goes out there, they're going to actually be using all of the pavement and all of the center island to make the turn here. But that's okay. That's a possible move for this. We don't want to make it too large. This is, after all, a fairly low use road, but it does get bypass traffic that sort of goes awfully fast. We're trying to put an element in to really bring speeds down. And you mentioned something about advance notice and coming over the bridge from Manchester. We're going to end up having to put advance notice signs in Manchester for this roundabout. We did end the raised island right at the town line, and we'll have some dividing pavement markings there. And it's possible that some of the overgrowth of brush that occurs just as you come over the bridge will have to get cut back. Given how much the DOT is cutting along their highways right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they cut that all down anyways. So I imagine there's going to be more visibility with that, but we'll have the lead-in signs roundabout ahead. And once people have gone through it a couple of times, they're going to know that it's there. So it should drive those speeds down. The roundabout at Chester, Forbes, and Roberts, single lane. This one, single lane. Don't know, the one I showed you for Larrabee that was trying to do signal lane, I don't know if it would work. It depends on volume. And Scott had one in his his presentation that he usually calls out as a hybrid. So, and I'm going to give my interpretation of that. Let's see if Scott agrees with me. When you have a dominant movement at a roundabout, what you can do is part of that movement gets its own lane so that it can stay out of the flow of the roundabout. So that in the case of Route 82, there's a lot of right turning traffic. When you look at it, it actually has a couple of lanes, but if you're in the right lane, you're only turning right. And then if you're in the left, then you go around to you can make the straight or turn around at that location. It's called hybrid. It's not multi-lane. It is not a what do they call them in Massachusetts? Not a roundabout, but a rotary. It's definitely not a rotary. Rotaries are like Mad Max. You know, you go in there, there's no line markings. You just hope that you can survive it. This is well marked out, well demarcated. And on Main Street, you've got 4 intersections. They have a lot of volume going through. They're going to do a really detailed job at figuring out how that volume can get through. And it's possible that the roundabout, let's say at Governor Street, is too close to the one at Connecticut Boulevard and can cause congestion that would back up off of one onto another. So it may not be possible to do that. This is the study that VHB is doing right now. They've got the traffic results. They're going to have the survey. They're going to be able to come up with a solution. Hopefully that will get us some roundabout features, speed control, increasing green features, possibly a bike lane, on-street parking. We have a lot of pavement on Main Street. We can use that in a much better way. And that's what they'll be looking at. My anticipation is that unless we get some other direction from DOT, we're probably not going to see multi-lane roundabouts occurring because there's actually a large increase in the number of conflict points that occur when you do that.
Thank you, Doug. And thank you, sir, for your question. Any other questions? Questions? Yep, come on, Travis.
How you doing? Travis Simpson, Naubeck Ave, East Hartford. First of all, thank you for the presentation and thinking out of the box. I do have a couple of concerns about roundabouts in general, just because we've seen them pop up around us. So one of them that you referenced in the slide deck was the 2 in Glastonbury, Hebron Ave and then New London Turnpike. So I traverse those quite a bit and I view them very differently. The one on Hebron Ave, the second one farther down, that is the hybrid, I guess, because it has some turn lanes mixed into it. That one seems like chaos because people don't yield because they're confused by the turn lanes and whether they're going straight through. And I see all the time where somebody tries to enter that's doing one of the turn lanes and the oncoming traffic just doesn't slow down at all because they have that extra space that they just kind of use the both lanes and plow, past. The one on the New London Turnpike in Hebron, that is much more pedestrian intensive. And I've seen pedestrians, whole families sitting there waiting nonstop until they finally get a good Samaritan that will stop the traffic flow and let them come through. So when you have a very busy roundabout, like I would envision Main Street, that can actually become more of a congestion point on the pedestrian side because you don't have that signalized crosswalk that gives that pedestrian the right of way. They're kind of at the mercy of traffic and when they can kind of catch a gap that they can get through. So I understand doing the halfway point so that it's, a 2-stage. You almost have to because them trying to dart across, it's like an old game of Frogger. You're taking your life into your hands. So I like the traffic easing. I like it kind of slows everything down and gets people to pay attention. But we got to make sure that we're still thinking about the pedestrians and letting them get through, especially in a very high traffic time frame like rush hour or things like that. The other thing I wanted to note was you brought up the apron that kind of goes around it that the tractor trailers can go up on. If you look at every exit of the roundabout on the other side of that, there's ruts where they exit because the tractor trailers try to stay off of that apron and stay off of that brick. So when they come around the other side of it, their tires hop the curb until they get back on the road. Even your own photos, if you looked at them closely, you would see at the exit point of every roundabout, that grass is just absolutely destroyed. It would be a good idea, especially for us, since we're looking at some new ones, we need to do like a brick paver or some sort of a hard surface to absorb that tire track as well. One of the biggest things I don't want to see us do is create another maintenance issue for the highway department and the parks department and everybody else to try to constantly clean up. Glastonbury's have been there for a couple of years. I've seen them try repeatedly to fix those areas, and they're never getting grass to grow there. That's going to always be a hassle. One of the last things I wanted to bring up was for the center islands of these roundabouts. It is important that they're raised. It is important that we can't make it to where people can just plow through it. If we can't even keep the Welcome to East Hartford sign standing, I hesitate to think what they're going to do if there's a path to go straight through. So again, not wanting to add more to the town's plate, what can we do hardscape wise that isn't a maintenance issue, isn't something where we're now trying to get a town truck to go into the center of the intersection to landscape the center median. Something that's more durable, a little bit less maintenance intensive, I think would apply. So other than that, I love the ideas. I love the areas of town that you guys are looking at. I think those are definitely areas we need to think outside of the box. But I just want to kind of keep in mind some of the unintended side of this, especially since we've got the benefit of looking at some of our neighboring communities and see what they did right, what they did wrong, and make sure that we deliver the best product we can.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you for the feedback. Yes, please.
3 items you asked questions on. I'll give you a response. In terms of concerns about pedestrian crossings, there's enhancements that we can do on the roundabouts to improve opportunities for pedestrians to safely cross. And if you have high pedestrian density areas, something certainly would be considered in the design. One of them is a raised crosswalk, very, very effective in getting additional speed control, but also highlighting the pedestrian crossing area. Those combined with RFBs, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons put on the side of the road that the pedestrian pushes the button, the lights start to flash, in addition to the raised crosswalk, have been shown to yield very, very high success rates in vehicle stopping to allow pedestrians to cross. And it's the law in Connecticut. But those are some additional things that we can do to help with pedestrian crossings. There have been very, very complex roundabouts elsewhere in the country where they're actually signalizing some of the legs of the crossings to help with high traffic areas and crossings. I don't think we're going to have that anywhere in our area, but certainly some of your local ones, a raised crosswalk and additional RFB added at the pedestrian crossings are something that we could consider and I think would help out quite a bit. As far as the trucks and the rutting, I will note that the example that I showed in our neighboring town here, Glastonbury, those roundabouts are a little different than what we would design on a state roadway. They're not designed for the tractor trailer that I showed in the picture at all. The diameter on those is probably less than 110 feet each. It may be even closer to 100 feet, 105 feet. Single lane roundabout design, the minimum diameter of roundabouts 120 feet. And that's some of the reason that there's some rutting in those areas. You know, there was an intentional decision when those were designed that we're getting rid of the traffic signals, we're going to reduce speeds, and we're going to do the best we can for that particular area. And there was an intentional decision not to allow trucks to make right turns on those roundabouts, and it's signed that way. And trucks get there and they do try to make the right turns, and it does get rutted up. But overall, having lived in Connecticut for all this time and driven Glastonbury, those are a huge success in terms of safety, business development in the area, and just improving traffic flow. I know you mentioned some difficulty with people maybe not yielding and maybe misuse of lanes. And I hear that from time to time on some of our newer roundabouts when they go in. But overall, if you look at them a few years later, what we're not seeing are fatal crashes and severe injury crashes. We hear a lot of somebody cut me off. I almost got hit. It's almost. Nobody went to the hospital that day. That's a win, right? That's successful. Okay, and then in terms of the center of the roundabout and concerns about maintenance activity and responsibility on the town and maybe hardscape, it's very important that the center of roundabouts have something tall, whether it's a gateway sign with uplighting, whether it's some landscaping that's some shrubs or trees that are meant to be low maintenance in terms of maybe just pruning on an annual basis, but not beautiful plantings like you'd put around a business or a home. Just something that shields the opposite lanes that are entering, because you don't want to see through the roundabout. You want those vehicles approaching to get the sense that the road is cut off. I can't see ahead. I need to slow down. And then when they get there, they navigate that right turn, then into the circular roadway, and they slow down. So that landscape feature or gateway sign in the middle, as much as it is visual aesthetic, it's also a safety feature. So I'd like to see if we can implement those where possible.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions in person?
Good evening, Kees Kila, 27 Brasser Drive. First of all, I wanted to express my appreciation for the plans. I think they're a very good idea. Some things that were said tonight really did resonate. I think, Scott, you said something that was engineering poetry to my ears. Geometry dictates the speed, not the speed limit signs. I think that's fantastic. Having a self-regulating system versus one that needs enforcement is a superior system. I also, the comments on the speed bumps also resonated with me. They are not the solution, and they punish everyone that drives over them, even the people that follow the speed limit. So I can't wait till we remove the ones on Runway Road. I'll be at that town hall as well. One concern I had, and I have a little bit of different experience with the roundabouts in Glastonbury. I actually do find that they work well. The one concern I have is with the non-mountable granite curbs. They don't, in my opinion, provide a good balance between the non-mountable aspect of it and potentially damaging tires and rims for minor mistakes, minor excursions that are unintentional. That's my one concern with those. I was wondering if that was taken into account and perhaps considered.
It's, I know some of ours are still under design, conceptual design, but definitely something we'll take into consideration as we build these out.
You mentioned Runway Road going across Pratt and Whitney. You won't be able to access those for very much longer. Sorry, they're going to resecure their boundaries and close that off to the public, just to let you know.
Thank you, though. Any other questions in person? Yep, Counselor.
Oh, okay. Can everyone hear me? Everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Good evening. Sorry, yeah, no? No? Okay. Question was I had was about the pitch on Chester and Roberts Forbes. Is it gonna be changed just to accommodate so folks can see what's over, or are you gonna be keeping it the same at display? Yeah.
It definitely needs to be flattened. Yeah, it'll be flattened and then there'll be fill grades that will take up the slope so that we get a flatter area where the circular disc of the roundabout occurs. It can't stay at these pitches. It really wouldn't work very well.
Thank you. And then I had one more question. Was the timeline for these roundabouts? I'm just curious. Is one that's going to be ready sooner than others? Or are they going to try to implement a handful at once before?
Okay, so the 4 on Main Street are conceptual design right now. Go way back. Okay. The 4 cyan ones on Main Street are conceptual right now, and they're being studied for viability at all. The 2 yellow ones, maybe someday if we can find a source of funding for them, would be a place where we might consider them. The lower green at Forbes, Chester, and Roberts has a selection of over $3 million from CROG that has been given to DOT. We're waiting on a commitment to fund from DOT. That will then allow us to engage with our consultant, who can then complete the design. I would say we need the design to probably take a year or so, and then after that, we'd be able to go out to bid, get a contractor on board, and construct. The one at Burnham and Sherwood is a little, I mean, don't want to speak too much for Jason, but a little bit farther ahead. It is self-funded, and we will be able to do the eastern section of Burnham and Sherwood with it, with the roundabout in between. I'm hoping next year. That's kind of my goal for that. I think they should be able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, person? Yep, Deb.
Deb Arietta. I live over on Sunset Ridge Drive. I wasn't planning on getting up and saying anything this evening, but I did have a situation that happened to us last night, and it involves the considerations of Route 5 and Main Street areas. Last night, the state police had closed down 91. We were at Savvy's Restaurant, which is off of Main Street. A number of tractor trailers, tandems, et cetera, had to come through East Hartford because of that closure. Has any type of consideration been given, because we are a thoroughfare and an alternate route for these type of situations? Has any thought been put into for consideration with regards to those type of matters?
So at least I can talk about, right, what solution East Hartford is creating for the state of Connecticut when a major highway that intersects through East Hartford is shut down. And you guys know that whether it's 291, 91, all the traffic gets diverted to Route 5, which just causes local traffic backup and tractor trailers, even more so on our main street. So a part of DOT's analysis of those roundabouts that we're proposing on Main Street, which in addition is us proposing, as you can see in this design, is dropping Main Street down the 1 lane on each side from bridge to bridge. That's the Dick Torpy Bridge, Train Bridge, and the Pitkin Bridge. One big concern that they have had is once we do decrease the amount of lanes on Main Street, once we pick up these roundabouts, although effective in keeping traffic moving, what's the impact that it's going to have not on all the side roads, right? So Prospect behind it, Carroll, Garvin, all these side roads that feed into Main Street was a main concern of theirs, and I think a rightful concern. And so as we have pitched to them a concept that drastically changes Main Street, really drops it down and makes it significantly more pedestrian friendly than it is now, there are some traffic implications that need to be considered at first. So DOT has already been thinking about what the impacts of what these roundabouts would have on the surrounding neighborhoods. I'm sure they're thinking about that situation that you're talking about, because we are always used as kind of the alternate route to any of the highways that shut down for an accident or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's all something that's being considered in here. And even without that, there are some impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods that need to be looked at, whether that situation happened or not. So yes, it is being considered, and I'm sure that's something that's on the radar of DOT. Thank you, Deb. Any other questions? Person? All right, Marissa, do we have any questions online?
We do, thank you. The first question is from Sarah. She says, I am a frequent pedestrian on Main Street and very enthusiastic about roundabouts. I'm in favor of the pedestrian enhancements you mentioned, as I think it unlikely that traffic will stop during rush hour to accommodate pedestrians otherwise. How would roundabouts on Main Street affect the signalized intersections in between? Would they remain the same?
So I think that goes back, and I want to speak for DOT, but a part of their analysis is, right, what's the impact to the surrounding neighborhoods, the surrounding intersections? Do those need to become roundabouts to accommodate keeping traffic flowing, or do they continue to keep them signalized? I don't have an answer for that yet. I think that's that's through the work of what DOT is looking at. And that will ultimately determine if these roundabouts we're proposing on Main Street are feasible or not.
All right, the next question in the chat is from David. Thank you for the fantastic information and presentation. I've learned quite a bit and support the addition of roundabouts and the continued learning process. If there's any opportunity, I'd welcome further improvements through roundabouts. Furthermore, while reconstructing the roadways, I'd ask the team to reconsider the size of the roadways, the width, as the area of roadways throughout all of town are oversized and require significant continued maintenance from the town. Narrowed roadways will still allow for all traffic needs while saving the town and people money.
And thank you, David, for that question. We agree with you. I know Doug is always looking at the size of our roadways as well as the width of our lanes that contribute to speeding and to a comfortability to be able to go faster. So I think that's a great point and something we continue to look at. But Doug.
And if we have an opportunity to reduce a roadway width, we can and we would, because we have a mandate to reduce impervious area under an MS4, which is a municipally separate storm sewer system permit that we have to have. And so we're looking for ways to reduce imperviousness. But what we frequently find instead is that we can reduce lanes, have the drivers feel that they cannot proceed as quick as otherwise down the road, and then use that extra pavement for some other good purpose, be it a bike lane, with sharrows or parking or something else, without making significant investments in changing the, basically the arrangement of the pavement that's there right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions from the chat.
Great. If no other questions in person. All right, in closing, at the end of the day, I want to thank all of you guys for coming out. This is a really great turnout. Both a mix of, I see some of my former elected officials as well, or fellow elected officials, in town residents. You know, at the end of the day, like I said, this is all about making East Hartford safer for pedestrians and curbing bad driver behavior. I got to tell you, I had a very interesting and a funny question before I had come to this, by one of the media outlets that I was doing an interview for. And they had said, if roundabouts have been proven to be safe and to be effective, why were you holding this this roundabout town hall? And the answer is because despite what we know to be true, what we experience every day, it's a priority of ours to make sure that you know the same information that we do, you know what we know to be true, and that we can at least make sure that you're heard in terms of your voice, you know, your concerns, any issues that you see with this, so that we could really just answer these for you right here in real time. So I thought that was one of the most interesting questions I had ever gotten as mayor of, why are you holding a public hearing to offer public information about a drastic change in the way that we drive here in East Hartford? And it's really to make sure that you know what we know and that we're hearing from you as well. So as always, you guys can always reach out to me for more questions, whether it's me, my town engineer, you can obviously reach out to the DOT. And like I said, stay tuned. We do have roundabouts, as you can see, coming to East Hartford, but we're making sure that we do our due diligence, we study them, we take into consideration your feedback and the feedback of our experts to make sure that we do this the right way here in East Hartford. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make East Hartford a safer place for all of us to live. So with that, thank you guys very much again for coming, and please enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you. If you can like kidnap me right out. Yeah, you want to stop right over here? Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, come around. You didn't mind.
The other, go get the other piece back. We don't want to lose your part. We don't want to lose your parking on you.